Disposable Heroes and Cliff Burton's bass part. What's not to love? Stick around. Written by James Hetfield, Lars Ulrich, and Kirk Hammett, Disposable Heroes is the fifth song off Metallica's third album, Master of Puppets, the first song on side 2, and my favorite Cliff Burton bass track. Let's get started. Welcome back, Disposable Heroes time. As always, we have the remaster, ripped from the remastered CD from 2017, a bass-enhanced copy of that remaster with 8 equalizers working together to bring out the bass that's already on the recording. They'll have certain frequencies boosted, and when available, the Cliff Burton isolated bass track, which you can see has been split into many pieces to line up with the bass and drums from the remastered CD, and it's heavily automated, and we're going to get into why in a minute. If you've seen my other episodes, you know that I got these isolated bass tracks off YouTube. Over the years, YouTube compression, which reduces the size of a video by fractions of a microsecond every time it's viewed, caused these tracks to contract or expand depending on what was happening in the song. So to get them to line up with the drums and guitars, I cut them into many pieces. If you haven't seen my other episodes, what are you doing? Stop your life, watch my other episodes. The automation lane, though, for Disposable Heroes is the most heavily automated bass track that I will give you in the entire series. And let's get into why. Cliff Burton got jacked in the Disposable Heroes mix, and despite the fact that it used to bug Fleming Rasmussen, the engineer, that Cliff liked to record a little stone and a little drum to be loose, I do believe they tried to give him a fair shake, but there are two other factors at play here. One, new strings. His open E is super loud and his octaves are super quiet, so it's very difficult to get him audible other than his open E. Number two, I don't believe they ran him through a compressor. If you look at Cliff's isolated bass tracks, there's all these peaks and mountains and valleys and ups and downs. If you look at Jason Newsted's bass tracks, they're all a bar, heavily compressed, so you can hear everything that he plays. With Cliff, though, I believe they tried to give him a fair shake, but there are parts of the song where his bass is so loud they just couldn't. And if they would have had an automation lane back then, they probably would have given you a lot more Cliff. First, let's solo the remaster. I can still hear Cliff. Fleming had that gift for keeping Cliff in the mix, but mostly it was just his right hand. You couldn't really hear everything he was playing. Let's hear it with the enhanced and the Cliff track all together. And you can hear that slide is nice and prominent. If it's not automated, it sounds like this. Right. So the octaves are not as loud as his open E, which is why I automated so much of this song, because I want you to hear everything without this being really loud and bass in your face. If you go over to here, now for the majority of this song I have him set at -2. For the beginning of the song where his open E is really resonant, I have him at -3. For this section right here, I brought him down to a -5. Let's just take a look at that real quick. This is what it sounds like unautomated. Right, and this is what it sounds like automated. Much more consistent. The octaves at the same level as the open E, and that's the whole point of this. And this is a much closer look at one of the octave fills that I automated, and as you can see, it's already loud. Why am I making it louder? There's a lot of noise in the song, a lot of distortion in the song, and some of that eats up Cliff's signal, and mostly his octaves for that matter. So check this out. Okay, so take it off, listen to it as a whole. You can barely hear it. It's like, what? Unautomated. Sounds like this. Where'd it go? Exactly. So it's automated, and I did that for every time Cliff plays an octave in this song, and as you can see, there was a lot of octaves in this song. But this was fun, and I love this bass track, so no time lost here. So what was the volume difference between Cliff's open E string and his octaves? In some cases, 4 to 6 decibels. You see I have this at -3, and it goes up to a positive 2.5, and over here it's -3 and it only goes up to a negative 1.5. That's because you can't hear this octave fill in the album, but you can hear this one. Solo it. Okay. This one. Alright, now, all together. There's no way he was compressed. In the verses, Cliff does these fills that are not on the album that are just killer. I don't know how else to say it, but I love them. Check this out. That's an octave. It's not on the album, trust me. Okay, it's barely on the album, but these are cool. Check this. Alright. Every time James stops singing, Cliff's got a fill. And then over here. Right here, Cliff is not playing the exact rhythm pattern that James is playing. James has a pick, to be fair. But what he is playing sounds pretty awesome. Not as precise as James, but on point nonetheless. And just by itself. Right, so not on the album. Very cool. This is my favorite Cliff Burton isolated bass track out of all of them. And when I first heard it on YouTube, I thought it was fake. When I realized it was real, my mind was completely blown, and I was sad that it wasn't louder. When I started this project, I started with the Justice for All songs. I was pissed off that Metallica released the Justice for All remaster and no repaired mix for Jason. So, but when I did a little more research, I realized Cliff got jacked as well on the second and third album, and I think that had something to do with Fleming. Maybe not, who knows. But regardless, this was the first song that wasn't a Justice for All song that I did, and it's because I love this bass track. So I've actually had this thing finished for like 2 years. This past 2 weeks, I've spent all the time micromanaging the automation lane so that it would be absolutely perfect when I give it to you. Again, when I release these songs on my channel as re-remastered songs, it's like I'm saying goodbye to them forever. So this being my favorite Cliff track, I took a little bit more time, but I hope you love it as much as I do. As a bass player in a metal band, you can double the guitar player all day long. Knowing when to break away, though, separates the pros from the amateurs. In this case, James plays galloping triplets. Sounds like this. Okay, and Cliff, for his part, plays this. I know, 2 slides over those galloping triplets, but it works. Listen to this all together now. Very cool. This section right here, remember this section. Some of the best Cliff Burton fills ever are in this bridge, solo, and second bridge. So when you get to it on the song, listen for Cliff's fills. Out of this world. And I'm not sure if they used a fader when they were mixing this to push Cliff up here, or whether he plucked the string so hard that he pierced the recording, but I brought him down from -2 to -4 there, because if you don't, it sounds stupid loud. And then right here at the ending, this is what James plays. James does a long chord that he holds and then slides down. Cliff does his own chord, but he slides up, but he doesn't hold it as long. And I didn't like the way it sounded together at first, but it has really grown on me. Cliff loved chaos. All told, the Cliff Burton bass part for Disposable Heroes had a total of 126 splits across 8 minutes and 16 seconds, or 1 split every 3.94 seconds. And now, our moment of GUIT-ARCHITECTURE. Mix-wise, Disposable Heroes is a very traditional Metallica song, and that everyone is where they're supposed to be in the mix. The only oddity is that Cliff Burton's backing vocal is on the right channel. If you listen with headphones, you'll hear James singing back to the front in the center channel, and Cliff singing it panned soft right, which is unusual because Cliff stands stage left, and Metallica usually sticks to each band member's representation in the stereo mix being based off of their stage location. Performance-wise, the song is Hang On for Dear Life, ranging in moments from walking down the street looking for a fight to running headlong into one. There is also a brief moment during the guitar solo where a second Kirk Hammett lead guitar panned hard right harmonizes with the main one. Now it's time once again for the in-album Lifeline segment, brought to you as always by Fresh Produce. No, not the brand, the concept. Eat your fruits and veggies. In this segment I always ask the question, would I trade? If the song that I'm working on has an isolated bass track, would I trade it away for one that doesn't? And if the song that I'm working on does not have an isolated bass track, would I trade it for one that does? Well, in the case of the Master of Puppets album, there are 8 songs, 6 of which have isolated bass tracks. The 2 that do not are Leper Messiah and Damage Incorporated. With regards to Disposable Heroes, it's my favorite Cliff Burton bass line across 3 albums and 2 EPs, so the verdict is no, I would not trade. Disposable Heroes is done, Leper Messiah is next. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. This is the Metallica Re-Remastered series. Stay tuned for more. This section right here. Remember this section. I'm not going to waste a bunch of time talking about what Cliff plays here, but the whole section has some of the best close